What is everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is one that a lot of people have done videos on. And there is actually a whole Hulu TV series on this case. I watched the Hulu TV series almost 2 years ago in the end of 2020 because a friend actually recommended it to me at the vocational school that I went to. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And let me tell you, Joey King did a pretty damn good job playing Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So today's case, as you can clearly tell, I said it is about Gypsy Rose Blanchard and the murder of her mother, DEE Blanchard. On July 27th, 1991, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born to parents Claudine, or best notably known as DEE Blanchard, and her father, Rod Blanchard. I'm going to kind of put this out there now. Rod was never really involved in DeeDee's life. He knew he had a daughter. DeeDee told him, and Gypsy also knew that she had a father. He was just never really around, and it didn't help that DeeDee did what she did, and didn't help that Gypsy and DeeDee moved. So we all know the story. Gypsy Rose Blanchard had a bunch of health issues, and they started when she was a baby. As a baby, DeeDee claimed that Gypsy suffered from sleep apnea, which a lot of people suffer, and throughout her childhood, DeeDee just kept claiming that she had stuff. And around the time that Gypsy was 8 years old, DeeDee claimed that Gypsy suffered from leukemia and muscular dystrophy, and said that Gypsy required a wheelchair and a feeding tube. By the way, those three that I mentioned are only the beginning of the list of medical issues DeeDee claimed that Gypsy had. She claimed at some point in Gypsy's life that Gypsy had seizures, that she had asthma, hearing and visual impairments. She also said that her daughter was very stupid, and I don't mean to sound mean, but she kind of just claimed that her daughter had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old, which I find kind of odd. Like, she kind of just made it seem like everything with Gypsy was wrong, and a lot of people believed DeeDee when she said this stuff because DeeDee knew how to get away with it. She knew how to say it and it sound believable. Like I said, DeeDee knew how to say this. She knew how to keep people from asking questions about things, and she also knew how to make it believe that Gypsy actually did have these issues. And since Gypsy's mother said that she had all these issues, Gypsy was prescribed a multitude of different medications and a sleep machine. A breathing machine to use when she slept. She also went through multiple surgeries. These included procedures on her eyes and removal of her salivary glands. Gypsy's teeth eventually rotted, and people don't know whether this is due to the fact that she was on medication she didn't need, her missing salivary glands, or overall neglect, and they had to be pulled. If you watch the show, they kind of show Gypsy like losing her teeth. They kind of make it seem like it was the fault, like the fact that she was like eating sweets really late at night and not brushing her teeth. So, like I said, DeeDee knew how to hide the fact that Gypsy wasn't sick. People didn't see behind closed doors. People knew that Gypsy needed a wheelchair and that she needed a feeding tube, but Gypsy didn't need the wheelchair, and she didn't need the feeding tube, and she didn't have cancer. And her head was only bald because DeeDee was shaving it to keep up the show that she had cancer. DeeDee would often have Gypsy get medical tests done. And a lot of these tests would come back inconclusive or contradictory results of what DeeDee said that Gypsy had. And DeeDee actually would stop seeing these doctors if they questioned her diagnosis of her daughter. And she would go see another doctor to see if they agreed with her. So many caregivers actually went along with whatever DeeDee wanted to hear. And when I say that, I mean like they kind of just didn't want to push it. Because DeeDee had nurses training. Like, DeeDee knew what some of these things could do. And she could accurately describe certain symptoms. And at some points, she'd even give Gypsy the certain medication to mimic the symptoms of whatever thing she said that Gypsy had. So By the time that Gypsy was old enough to talk, Dee Dee told her not to talk at her appointments. She was always the one that talked, and she made sure of this. At one point, Dee Dee told Gypsy's dad their daughter had a chromosomal disorder that led her to have so many health issues. He even complimented Dee Dee for her devoted care for their daughter. So, by the way, everything I just stated was mostly while Gypsy was a child, and they were still living in the same area as Dee Dee's family. So around this time, like, Dee Dee's family has started to notice that Gypsy didn't need her wheelchair, and they were asking questions. And this startled Dee Dee, and she up and moved, taking her daughter with her. In 2005, we all know that a devastating hurricane hit New Orleans, and that was Hurricane Katrina.
At daybreak, Katrina was roaring, and visibility was next to nothing. The 9 New Orleans firefighters...
And Dee Dee claimed to be a victim of Hurricane Katrina, and she received assistance to relocate from Louisiana to Missouri. So while in Missouri, Dee Dee continued to take Gypsy to doctor's appointments, and considering she claimed they were victims of Hurricane Katrina, it allowed them to go by with the missing medical files. So in 2008, just 3 years after Hurricane Katrina and her claim that they were victims, Habitat for Humanity built Gypsy and Dee Dee a house in Springfield, Missouri. The house was painted a bright pink, and it had a wheelchair ramp for Gypsy. They also received benefits that included charity-sponsored visits to concert and Disney World. So keep in mind, during all this time, they're getting a lot of media attention. They're getting paparazzi. They're just kind of getting really heavy media attention. And Dee Dee is basking in it. She loves the attention. She is being known as this devoted, caring mother, taking care of her very sick child. So they live in Missouri for the rest of their life, by the way. Dee Dee does. Gypsy, kind of. I don't know how to explain that. So when Gypsy was 14, she saw a neurologist in Missouri. This doctor came to the conclusion that Gypsy was a victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. However, he never reported this diagnosis to the authorities. And in later interviews, he actually stated his belief that there wasn't enough evidence to act on this. Like, he said there wasn't enough evidence for him to go to the authorities. In 2009, a year after she was diagnosed with the Munchausen syndrome by proxy, an anonymous report was made to the authorities saying that Dee Dee was lying about Gypsy's illnesses. This report resulted in 2 caseworkers showing up and visiting their home. But Dee Dee convinced them that nothing was wrong. And in the show, The Act, they actually do show the scene, and it shows that Dee Dee drugs Gypsy so that Gypsy looks like she's sick and Gypsy looks like she has all these issues, so that CPS doesn't really think anything of it. Gypsy was born in 1991. Keep that in mind, right? Like, Gypsy is born in 1991. And Dee Dee, as she grew older, mostly in her teen years, Dee Dee began to lie about her age. Going as far as to alter the dates on Gypsy's birth certificate to make her daughter seem younger. Like, she would go and get a new birth certificate saying, oh, that's wrong year, it's 1992, or that's 1993, or 1994. I think at one point in the show, it said that she was born in 1995. That is, like, 4 years older than what Gypsy really is. So in the show, like, Gypsy thought she was 15, when in reality she was 19. So keep that in mind. Because this next paragraph, this next little tidbit is kind of funny. So, in 2011, Gypsy and her mother went to this science fiction convention, basically like Comic-Con, and she actually met a man there, and she tried running away with this man. Like, she talked to him online, and she was getting to know him, and she was like, yeah, and tried to run away with him. Dee Dee tracked Gypsy down, tracked them down through mutual friends, She went as far as to convince the man that Gypsy was underage. Gypsy was almost 19 or 19 at the time. And according to Gypsy, she said that when they got home from this, her mother smashed her computer and physically restrained her to her bed after they came home. Gypsy also said that her mother would sometimes hit and deny her food. So a few years after this incident, in around 2012, 13, 14, around there, Gypsy ended up getting another computer and made a online dating profile on a Christian dating app or site. This is where she would meet Nicholas Godejohn. Nicholas Godejohn was 23 when he met Gypsy via the dating site. But at this point in his life, he already had a history of mental illness and a criminal record for indecent exposure. It only took a couple of months before their virtual nightly bonding sessions turned into face-to-face meetings. In 2012, they had their first initial meeting, which would be them going to a movie with DEE, and the two of them would have sex in the movie theater bathroom. And this was kind of where the talk of murdering DEE kind of started, is this first initial meeting. They would continue to plot DeeDee's death online after this meeting, and 3 years after the beginning of the plot to murder Gypsy's mother, they went through with it. So in June, in the middle of the night in 2015, Gypsy left that front door unlocked for Nicholas, and when he snuck in, she led him to her mother's room. Gypsy then went into the bathroom and covered her ears while her boyfriend mutilated her mother. And Gypsy could still hear the murder of her mother while her ears are covered in the bathroom. So, after Nicholas butchered DeeDee, him and Gypsy fled. Like, they had to go. Like, somebody would eventually figure out what happened, right? They went to his home, his house that he shared with his parents. He lived in Wisconsin, and while they were there, they decided to post on Gypsy's shared Facebook account she had with her mother. Even writing, "That bitch is dead." Okay? It's a little suspicious if you just killed your mom. Because Gypsy said that she wanted her mom's body to be found. That's what she said later. Which makes sense. She has stated in interviews now that she feels very guilty about the fact that she had to murder her mom to get out of that situation. DeeDee would be found 3 days later. And the cops found her face down in her bed in a pool of her own blood with multiple stab wounds. I didn't write that for some reason. So, Gypsy and Nicholas were eventually caught. They were tracked to his house. They traced the IP of the post that they made on Facebook, tracked them down, and arrested Nicholas and Gypsy. By the way, people, after DeeDee's murder, people questioned why Gypsy murdered her. They were thinking, you weren't sick, and at any given time in the public eye, while you were at Disney World or at these conventions or on the news for Habitat for Humanity, you could have stood up, like physically stood up out of the wheelchair. But Gypsy had been conditioned to believe that if she did this stuff, if she were to stand up in public, or if she had told somebody, they wouldn't have believed her. DeeDee had conditioned her that no one would ever believe her but her mother. Gypsy had spent her entire life, from the time she was born until the time her mother died, being controlled and monitored by her mother. DeeDee didn't allow Gypsy to go to school. Though Gypsy was of normal intelligence, she was as smart as me. DeeDee told everyone that Gypsy was the mental age of 7. Like I said earlier, she told people her daughter was stupid. Like, it just doesn't make sense to people outside of this little thing. Gypsy knows exactly why she didn't do it and how she couldn't do it. But people like me and other people who don't know what it's like to live in that situation see it and go, well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you stand up? During the trial of the murder of her mother, her lawyer was able to arrange a plea deal. Gypsy's medical records documented the abuse she'd been subjected to. The years of abuse, such as the medicine she'd been put on, the surgery she had been performed on, everything that DEE had done to her. So in 2016, a year after her mother's murder, Gypsy pled guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and she'll be eligible for parole beginning in 2024. Nicholas was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2018 and was sentenced to life in prison. I believe without the possibility of parole, I'm not sure. But yeah. But today, it is 2022, Gypsy is in good health. She has stated more than once she actually likes the freedom she receives in prison, which is very odd. I think a lot of people would kind of be like, what do you mean freedom? Gypsy has always been asked if she was glad her mother is dead. And like I said earlier, Gypsy has kind of made it clear that she's happy to be out of the situation she was in, but she's never been happy with the fact of how she had to get out of that situation. And when asked if she's glad her mother is dead, she responds with, I'm glad I'm out of that situation, but I'm not glad she is dead. Gypsy went on the Dr. Phil show, and I can't show any of those clips because he is very picky and very, very copyrighty. But this case has always sat with me very wrong because of the treatment that DEE put Gypsy through, or because Gypsy had nobody to tell this to, and she felt it was easier to tell a stranger online that she didn't have these issues, and that, you know, that she plan out her mother's murder because she thought that was the only way she could get out. You have to think of all of the possibilities that happen when you're in this situation. I don't know how else to put it. You know, Gypsy spoke out about it. You know, Gypsy's dad spoke out about how he believed that she had all these issues, and, you know, it's just amazing to me to know that a mother who very much loves her daughter, and that's very evident in the way that she faked this just to take care of her. To me, that's just something that I personally wouldn't do. But then again, I'm not a mother. I don't know what that's like. And I hope that Gypsy does get paroled. I genuinely believe that she shouldn't be in prison. That's just my opinion. Her mother put her through hell, and she deserves to live a happy life. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to comment any videos that you guys want to see. And you can go to my page, and on my banner there is a Google Forms that you can fill out, and you can leave a comment or a case there, and give me a little something about the case. What is it about the case that made you want to put it there? Thank you guys for watching today's video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.